I'm 25 years old, and loneliness has started to feel heavier as Valentine's Day approached. I told myself it was just another day, but everything around me seemed designed to remind me that I was alone. So when I couldn't take it anymore, I opened Tinder again, hoping to find anyone who could help me avoid spending Valentine's Day by myself. I matched with a girl named Gothica. Her profile immediately stood out. She had dark hair, sharp eyeliner, and a calm, unreadable expression in every photo. Her bio was short and vague, mentioning movies, late nights, and deep conversations. There was something about her that felt different, but I couldn't place what it was. When she messaged first, asking if I had Valentine's plans, I answered honestly and said no. She replied almost instantly and suggested we meet. We decided on a movie. When I met her outside the theater, she smiled and said my name in a way that made it sound deliberate, like she was committing it to memory. During the movie, she leaned in close and whispered comments that had nothing to do with the screen. She asked if I liked being alone and whether I ever felt invisible. Sometimes she laughed at scenes that weren't funny, then went silent during moments meant to be emotional. I noticed more than once that she was watching me instead of the movie. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling in my chest. Dinner afterward felt lighter at first. She joked with the waiter and talked about the film she loved. Then, without warning, she asked about how many girls I had dated before her. I shrugged and answered casually. She followed up immediately by asking how many of them I had slept with. The question caught me off guard, and I laughed awkwardly, trying to brush it off. She tilted her head and smiled. "Men only care about one thing," she said, her tone sharp but controlled. Before I could respond, she laughed and waved it off like a joke, asking what dessert I wanted. The sudden shift in her mood left me confused. I felt like I was talking to two different people sharing the same body. After dinner, I asked if she wanted to come back to my place for a couple of drinks. I expected her to hesitate, but she agreed immediately, almost eagerly. The speed of her answer surprised me, but I told myself I was overthinking it. At my apartment, she looked around slowly, taking everything in. She ran her fingers along the walls and glanced into rooms without asking. At first, she acted normal, making small talk and laughing easily. Then the question started again. She asked how many girls had been there before, how often I brought dates home. She asked whether I had slept with those girls in the same place. I tried to joke and change the subject, but she did not seem amused. "I don't like men who recycle memories," she said quietly. The tension in the room grew uncomfortable. Then, just as suddenly, her expression softened. She smiled brightly, stepped closer, and acted playful again, as if nothing strange had been said. She took my hand and led me toward the bedroom, laughing lightly as she went. I followed her, ignoring the feeling that something wasn't right, convincing myself that this was just nerves, and the night was finally going the way I had hoped. I knew something was wrong with the way her mood kept changing, but I ignored it again and again because I was desperate for some action. Loneliness is a way of dulling your instincts, and desperation makes red flags look like harmless quirks. When Gothica led me into the bedroom, I followed without protest, even though the uneasy feeling in my stomach had only grown stronger. Inside, she stopped near the bed and turned to face me. "Turn off all the lights," she said. The request felt strange. There was no playfulness in her voice this time, just expectation. I hesitated, joking that it felt like the start of a horror movie, but she didn't laugh. She only repeated herself, slower. Against my better judgment, I reached for the switch and plunged the room into complete darkness. The silence felt thick. I couldn't see her, couldn't even tell where she was standing. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, when suddenly a violent force grabbed my hair. Pain exploded across my scalp as a fist yanked upward, tearing out a clump of my hair from my head. I screamed, instinctively trying to pull away, my heart slamming against my ribs. I fumbled for the light switch and slammed it on. Gothica was sitting upright on the bed, her posture rigid and unnatural. Her eyes were rolled so far back that only the white showed. Her mouth moved rapidly, whispering words I couldn't understand, syllables that sounded wrong. The sound made my skin crawl. It didn't feel like a language. It felt like a ritual. I stumbled backwards and shoved her hard, trying to put distance between us. She fell back onto the mattress, but her hand never loosened. Her fingers were still tangled in my hair, gripping it with terrifying strength. She let out a scream that didn't sound human, her voice cracking and overlapping with itself. "I have you now," she shrieked. "I control you now. for the rest of your life. I panicked. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone as I called 911. I screamed into the receiver, barely able to explain what was happening. The operator tried to calm me, asking for details and telling me help was on the way. Behind me, Gothica rocked back and forth in the bed, still chanting, still smiling through her screams. I watched in horror until I heard sirens. The sound changed everything. Gothica froze mid-chant. Her head snapped toward the window, her expression sharpening with sudden focus. She released my hair and sprang off the bed with unnatural speed. Before I could react, she rushed to the window, threw it open, and without hesitation climbed out. She jumped. I ran to the window just in time to see her hit the grass below with a dull thud. She didn't scream. She stood up, looked straight at me, and smiled. Then she disappeared into the darkness beyond the apartment complex. When the police arrived minutes later, my apartment looked like a crime scene. Hair scattered on the floor. The bed sheets were twisted and stained with sweat and blood. I told them everything. They listened carefully, exchanging looks that made me feel small and foolish. They checked my phone. Her profile was gone. No messages, no photos. It was as if she had never existed. They searched the area outside, but there was no sign of anyone injured, no footprints, and no witnesses. Eventually, they told me it was likely a disturbed individual who fled when she heard the sirens. But even as they spoke, I could feel it. The deep certainty that what had happened was not normal. A week passed. I barely slept. Every sound in my apartment made me flinch. I checked locks repeatedly and avoided mirrors, afraid of what I might see reflected back at me. I kept replaying her words in my head, wondering if she meant them, or if she had simply been trying to scare me. One evening, while walking home from the grocery store, I cut through the small park near my building. The sun was setting, casting long shadows between the trees. I was almost at the exit when I heard someone calling me in a sing-song voice. Tane. My blood ran cold. The voice came from behind a large tree off the path. Slowly, I turned, and Gothica was standing behind that tree. Her grin was wide, stretching unnaturally across her face. Her eyes locked onto mine, sharp and knowing. I blinked hard and rubbed my eyes. When I looked again, there was nothing there. I stood frozen for a long time, listening, waiting for her voice to return. It didn't. But even now, I don't know what scares me more. That I really saw her, or that she found a way to stay inside my head, watching, waiting, controlling me from somewhere I can't see.